Thank you, Madam and Mr. Speakers. No, if the government wants to abolish a policy, there needs to be 3 steps to be taken. First, they need a clear, concrete problem in the source code that is severe enough to harm society and the involved entities. But not only that, what they need is a standard to measure the cost and future possible implications of the policy brings harm to society. But most importantly, what they need is a clear methodology that their policy of abolishment or banning is the sole method, that other methods are not possible in solving the problems. But what we saw was a clear problem in all of these 3 requirements. First of all, we saw a problem that was not solely significant nor exclusive of this policy. We saw a standard that was extremely vague and unmentioned by the government. Lastly, we saw methodology was very extreme and it's not effective, and it will remove the simple benefits that this policy has given to society and students over the years. So we see that because of the clear 3 problems that they showed in today's debate, that their stance cannot stand. And we believe that the basic stand of the opposition is that the benefits of our policy greatly outweighs the supposed problems that are not exclusive to the policy, and that is why we believe that this policy, thank you, sir, needs to be implemented and kept in today's debate. Now, before we go on to the clashes or the issues of today's debate, I would like to first talk about what the opposition, the government, had to talk about in today's debate. Again, it was about the value of education. But the government in today's debate missed out a crucial prerequisite. It was not about the simple value of education in general, but it was about the value of tertiary education, of education above the college level. Because after you go to college, education not only becomes about equality and fairness, but it also becomes about efficacy, about providing the best education to produce productive members of society. That is why there is stringent process in the admission of college students. That is why we believe that the government cannot only focus on the idea of equality and equity because it leads to side effects. Thank you, sir. That was the primary mistake the government focused on, made in today's debate. So we'd like to prove that complexity is necessary, efficacy is necessary to see that is why this cannot stand. No, thank you, sirs. Now, without further ado, we believe that because of our policy of keeping the admissions officer system, which is by the way not the only way to choose students in the process of college admission, it ensures first of all it maximizes the utility of college education, and second it ensures a minimum level of equality the government proposes, and there are other alternatives. And this benefits the 3 entities, the students, because it allows these certain group of students to realize their full potential. It benefits the university by allowing to have the full efficient system. And thirdly, it benefits obviously society because the society has now more professionals in their respective fields who have the ability and the opportunity to study their relevant fields. Now, with that done, there are 2 major issues in today's debate. The first issue is about the equity versus efficacy. The second clash is about the methodology, which is the right way to do. Now, without further ado, let's go into the first issue, please, which is about equity versus efficacy. Now, again, I would like to emphasize that government in today's debate made a grave mistake by solely focusing on the issue of equity. But what the opposition wanted to do, thank you, sir. What the opposition wanted to do in today's debate was have a balance between efficacy and equality, equity. We see that in the current status quo, there is already a relevant system to fulfill both needs. Now, to go into specifics, the government basically asserted 2 things. First was about the purpose of education, about fair education. But again, we see that fair education is not the sole purpose or objective of college education. If their policy concerning fairness negatively affects the issue of efficacy, we see that there is a problem in the government's stance also. Because again, it's about tertiary education. We're not talking about primary schools. We're not talking about middle schools. In just a moment, sir. We're talking about colleges. Yes, sir.
Define efficacy.
Efficacy is about providing students, helping these students realize their full potential after they receive the minimum education they need in terms of mathematics, linguistics, or sciences. When these students go into colleges, they study engineering, they study their respective fields of talent. What the government team said that you can do that after you go to college. But ladies and gentlemen, if you're very interested in linguistics or social studies, but you're not very good at mathematics, then you do not have a chance to major in linguistics, because in the current system, if this policy is banned, then there is no way to go into colleges unless you're apt at all 3 subjects. We see that is a very unfair policy for these specific group of students. That is the reason why we need to keep this policy. No, thank you, sir. And we see that their second argument was about we need to protect the rural people, the poor people. And we see it, and they also talked about how this policy only affects some luxurious people like us. But we see that first of all, there are already measures to help those poor people, those disadvantaged people through the forms of certain quotas, what we call 사회적 배려 대상자들. And we say that is already a functioning problem policy in the source code. We say that the problem of this poor people is not an exclusive policy of of admissions officer system. So we see that their problem is not exclusive and it's an unfair burden to just ban this policy. Secondly, and about this being an unfair advantage to the rich people or the royals, we say that is the exact reason why the portion of admission officer system, the quota, is limited to provide the minimum level of equity among students. That is the reason why their stance cannot stand today's debate. And the opposition, our stance is very simple. By looking at their potentials, their relevant talents, engineering or mathematics or linguistics, we say we choose students that fit the need of their majors. We say that there's less relevant factors such as standardized sports that does not affect their careers in the long term. We say that this helps students gain more experience and gain more customized education that actually benefits the efficacy of education. Now, more importantly, let's go in, and also they talked about how students are forced to take major, but we see that this is a very relevant point because, as in the current case, there are colleges of liberal studies for students who did not choose their majors in the first term. There are other ways to engage in the education system, other policies than this policy. Now, the second issue is about the question of what is the right way. Now, what the government basically said is this policy is favorable towards the rich and advanced people. That is the reason why we need to ban it. But two levels of refutation to this debate. First of all, why is this an exclusive problem of admissions officer system? It's natural in some sense for people from more privileged and rich backgrounds to receive more education. This is not a problem of the system, the policy we're talking about today's debate, but rather it's a problem that we see in the current. It's a phenomenon that we see in the current society. We see that just banning this policy will not do anything to help these disadvantaged people. Now, more importantly, to end this today's debate, let's go into the second part about the cost and benefits analysis. Now, even if we just agree upon their problems of hurting the poor disadvantaged people, we say that the benefits that our policy has is more relevant, has more impact on society. Now, again, to wrap it up, their problem was about it being disadvantaged towards these people and about it not being effective. Already this problem is an exclusive problem of the policy, and there are already actions taken to help these people. But the benefits of our policy greatly outweighs the system because it promotes the interest and talents of various students. It removes unnecessary burdens and barriers for a specific group of people. These group of people who have a natural talent or interest in a certain area but do not meet certain quota. That is why we believe that our policy needs to be kept to maximize utility on both sides. Thank you.